Welcome to the Nexus Unloaded podcast. This is Will Crozier.
And I'm Zach Kongonis. We are here to bring you the best solutions to your lifting problems. Through our real-world experience, we hope to break things down in a digestible, applicable, and entertaining way.
Have you ever thought that your main work and accessory work are conflicting? Maybe you find yourself too stuffed after your squats, bench, and deadlift to put in a lot of effort into these accessories, or maybe something similar to that situation. In this episode, we tackle that problem and give our perspectives on how you can approach this situation to get the most out of your efforts. But before we get to that, we kick things off with a bit of a recap of what's been going on in our lives, including some training updates, the current coach mentorship ending, and the new diabetes government subsidy. So let's kick things off. All right. And you're just telling us about your brand new treadmill that you love and you really, really like being in the house. It's super useful.
Yeah, Dakota bought this fucking little... Look, my biggest gripe is it has no handrails. So if you turn it up, I just fall straight off the back of it because I can't figure it out. I don't know.
Have you ever actually done that in a gym?
Of course I have.
I've done it.
You know who you're talking to?
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I hate treadmills. I never use a treadmill because I'll get on the treadmill and then of course treadmills are super fucking boring and so you're like, oh, what do I do? You know, you're playing your phone or you play a game or whatever you do. But like, yeah, and then you slowly you start concentrating on it and then you just like lose it and then next thing you know you're on your face. So like the bike is my preferable choice for cardio for that reason. For other reasons as well, but mainly for like I can do it and be completely mindless.
Because we have the Concept 2 bike and that seat is like sitting on a wooden stake. It is the least comfortable thing I've ever put my ass on. Yeah,
you can get little foam pads for them and like, I don't know, eBay ones, like my mate, shout out Tim, loves it and absolute gun on that thing and yeah it's like a little gel thing like for real bikes I think, but you put it over the top and get them booty gains so it doesn't slide in there.
You don't want the concept like
it's one of the real thin things of course. I don't know who they designed it for. It's like, what are you doing? Anyway,
have large booty holes in mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, they're not looking at 120 kilo powerlifters. Will definitely be using this stuff 100%. What else have we got this week? Catching up, me and Mick have just bought a new mattress. Our old one just had it looked like a mountain range. Like if you looked at it from the end, it's just like this divot of where I've been, and then we've tried to try to flip it to counteract that a little bit, and then I've made a divot on the other side. So now it's just this thing, and yeah, and then we went to buy a new one, and I just hate the whole process of mattress shopping. I think it's the dumbest fucking thing in the world. Like the salesman guy is just like, oh yeah, you know, you lay on this one and lay on that one, but they all feel better than your current one because your current one's fucked.
Don't have a reference
so like
like this one's terrible.
So you go in and you're like, well, my one really sucks. So like this one's great, that one's great, and well, holy fuck, they're all great. Like it's not. I don't know. I lay on one and they're like, how does this one feel? I'm like, exactly the same. Like I don't know if I'm fucking stupid or what, but like it just seems like such a thing. And then, you know, the other thing that I really hate about mattress shopping is the sales tactic of having just ridiculous discounts
all the time.
Like it's like this mattress, man. Look, the sale ends tomorrow, so you have to get it today, but it's down from $1 billion to $3,000. Like that is ridiculous.
Almost $1 million here. Come on, bud. You better jump on top of it.
Yeah, and then you know they're full of shit. You know that that sale is not ending tomorrow. It's like you know the kitchen cutlery store, and they have like the 8,000 posters out the front of their store that says like 80. Yeah. They love a sale, like a constant 80% sale. Like I fucking hate that shit because they like try to talk you in like, oh, it ends tomorrow. It's like, well, I've been walking past this shop for 3 years and you've always had sales signs up. So stop fucking bullshitting me. And it's the same thing with mattresses. I'm like, your sale never ends.
This has really
like,
gotten
please.
under your skin. How long has it been bugging you for? Jesus.
I don't know, but we ended up getting the mattress. It's all sorted now.
Still don't know what type of springs you got. Didn't know box spring, coil spring, spring, big spring, little spring. You got to know these things.
We got the spring that Yeah, it goes inside, and it's like a little spring into a big spring, and apparently it's like multi-spring, does like all the spring things in at the same time. I don't know.
The dude's like looking
It's
at you
fucked.
walking into the
That's
store.
the same thing again. They try to explain the technology to you, and you're like, it's fucking spring. I don't know. Is it comfortable? Yeah, cool, sick. Like, I don't know. It's really dumb. What you've tried out? Didn't you buy one a couple months ago?
Yeah, so we bought one of those fucking koala mattresses, the ones that came in a box,
The foam
ones.
Foam.
Look, it was pretty comfortable, but there's certain activities that you cannot perform on a koala mattress, and I don't know if it was just me. I'll keep the podcast PG, but you can't. It just doesn't work. You sink in, the heights are all off. It's a disaster.
Too rough. Zach, just overly rough. Just sinking in there, just bouncing around.
That's the issue. There's
I
no
know.
bounce. It's just like you just sink.
Okay.
It's like a marsh. It's a swamp.
I was scared that I would sink into it, and I would be on the floor almost. It would just create a crater, a cavern, a monster hole.
A cavernous monster hole. That's a descriptor that I didn't really want to hear today.
Yeah, I would not. That's why we kind of ran away from him. I know. Let's get away from this.
Get away from the cavernous monster holes and into something different.
So let's talk about training. Hey, that's what the podcast is about. So I have just started a new block. It's a 5-day split. Yeah, I haven't. I hope Matt doesn't listen to this, but like I haven't completed a full week in a while due to the seminars and everything that we've had running. But yeah, completed 5 days last week. Looking good for this week as well. It's kind of a weird split. It's more of a bodybuilding split, like a body part split, but then I chuck in squat and deadlifts at the start of like some upper body days. So it's literally just as far as lower body goes, like the squatting and the deadlifting in those days, and then there's like just upper body accessories, and then I do a whole day of lower body accessories. And that ties really well into the question of this episode, because we'll go into it in a sec, but we're talking about how to set up main work and accessory work to make sure that you get the best out of both. And for you at the moment, I know that you've just started training for your super total, because I've seen all of your Instagram and stuff, and I was about to say crappy snatches, but then you can come back at me and mine would be 10 times worse.
Your arms wouldn't even get over.
So I have nothing to stand on.
Your snatch here, like 120 degrees
I'd
of
have to
shoulder
do
flexion.
Just a big back extension bench pressy overheady thing. Technically it is over my head. Yeah, I've seen you've been doing that. So, like, how have you set that up?
So, me and Brandon Accardi actually was thinking through it, and we've gone with like a weird A-week, B-week split. It's a bit fucking convoluted, but it's we're looking forward to it. The biggest thing is I just need to be the first Nexus coach to total 1,000. Doesn't matter if I qualify it with 5 lifts or 3. In the bio, it'll say 1,000 kilos, and it'll just eat you up inside.
I don't think you'll get there. What numbers?
Tell me the
numbers.
Not that bad. It's a 160 clean and jerk, 120 snatch, 260 squat, 160 bench, 310 pull. It's not awful.
You've already done most of them. What the fuck?
We're getting there. It's just the squat and the,
all right,
and the
if you do that, I'm going to do a super total and beat you. Easy. I'm going to jump in. Just need to not make my shoulders snap in half. But I reckon I can front raise 120 kilos or whatever.
All you'd have to do is like clean and jerk 60, snatch 40, and then do your normal total, and you're fine.
Yeah. What are the rules on the minimum you can do? Yeah. So it's there's that. The last thing that I wanted to bring up was the for people who have followed along with me, I haven't necessarily brought it up in this podcast, but like 6 months ago, I got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, which is the genetic one. So it's autoimmune, where your body attacks itself, attacks your insulin creating cells, which has been a journey physically and mentally, has been really a big thing I've had to figure out, which is kind of, I don't want to put it fully on that, but also a reason why my training hasn't been overly consistent in the last 6 months, a year, as well as the gym, as well as the mentorships, as well as everything else we've had going on. Yeah, there has been a lot going on, but that's just added to the bucket of new things to work out. And the reason I bring it up now, we might do like a different episode on this completely, because I don't want to just ramble on about this as a side topic, but they've just subsidised all of the monitors in Australia. So the little monitor that I wear on my arm that continuously monitors my glucose and then allows me to take the right amount of insulin that I need to take to stay within a normal
Stay
range.
outside of death.
So it's going to save me a couple of $100 a week, which is a couple $100 every month minimum. It's going to save me. So like over $50 a week, it's ridiculous. So
How expensive are they?
It depends which one you get. So I had the cheaper one, which is it's a flash monitor, so you have to scan it on your phone, and then that's how it like transfers the data that it reads into your phone and into your log, into your app, and then you can kind of read that. And that was $120 a fortnight,
Jesus.
and you had to reapply it every
Unless
fortnight.
you tear it off when you take your shirt off.
Yes, have done that. They're just kind of stuck to you, so they're pretty easy to rip off, and once you rip it out, that's it, done. Have to get a new one, have to put a new one in. But the new one that I've got is considerably more expensive. However, with this new subsidy, they're both the same price now. But it has a little transmitter built into it. So every, I think it's 5 minutes, it actually Bluetooth sends it to your phone, so you don't have to scan it, you don't have to do anything. You can just open up the app on your phone, and it should have all the data in there already. I'm excited to try that out. But so that's hopefully another part of my life that makes my life a little bit easier, makes training a little bit easier, makes things a little bit because it screws you up. Like you'll go in to train, and then you'll have low glucose for whatever reason because you forgot to eat and you're coming into training or whatever, and then you'll have to go eat, and then it's not like instant, obviously. Like you have to eat the food, wait for it to digest, and get pull your sugars back up into a normal range so you can feel good again. And then obviously you have to make sure it doesn't go too high, because if it goes high, then you have a lot of fatigue that comes with that, and it's going to impact your training in other ways as well. So it's a bit of a pain in the ass, not only from life and a mental aspect of constantly having to thinking about it 24/7 whenever you have to eat. It's just a thing that's there. It's a little bit of just takes up brain space.
How does the blood sugars go throughout the session? I guess if you're doing a larger session, you're hitting some heavier main work. Do you find that it tends to do weird shit as the session progresses?
Yeah. It bounces around. Depends kind of on the type of training that I'm doing, but definitely you have to keep a little bit of an eye on it because, it does impact performance if it goes too high or too low, especially too low. So, at competitions in future, it's going to be one of those things that I'm going to have to really keep an eye on because, it's a long day. How long is a comp? Usually 8+ hours. Yeah, depending on which comp you do and how the flights are set up and stuff. So and not only that, there's a lot of stimulants being used and stuff on the day. So that's going to potentially affect your hormones that way. And then not only that, but, obviously it's a pretty adrenaline-based sport, so you're constantly getting really amped for shit and all that sort of stuff, and that impacts it as well. Like your stress hormones and other kind of hormones on the day that are constantly going up and down naturally from just being such an up and down sport like that impact it. So you're going to be constantly in the back of my mind. Just another thing to keep aware of if there isn't enough things that you want to optimize on comp day already. You're already thinking about nutrition, you're thinking about the next lift, you're thinking about your equipment, you're thinking about everything, and then just one more thing to add to the...
Hey homie, you might die soon, better have some jelly beans.
Yeah, I haven't actually had any jelly beans. I'm a gummy bear guy.
Really?
But
that's upsetting.
The
glucogel jelly beans
you would prefer?
are king.
Nah.
Really?
Nah, man, nah.
I'm
sure. Gummies. All the little, the soury worms, the little, the soft ones.
The one, you had the big bucket at the gym that I was just eating the entire shallow seminar.
Yes. Yeah. Was that you? I was like, holy fuck, this bucket went fast. It's just an entire bucket of this, it's for people watching, it's big bucket like this, not a small bucket of sour worms.
That was so good. They were the right texture and consistency. They were squishy enough, and they weren't so sour that if you ate 17 handfuls, it burnt the inside of your mouth. They were good. They were good gummies.
Yeah. Lucky I wasn't going low one day and needed some of them. So
You're fine. It's all right.
Thanks, so. That's a side benefit of having our community jar. We have a community snack jar at the gym. So the idea is people come in and they donate snacks, and then they're allowed to take snacks out of the jar as they please. Just one of the little kind of side benefits of signing up at Nexus Gym if you're on the Gold Coast.
That's a smooth
like,
plug. I like that.
Imagine somebody rocks up at the door and you're like, what are you here for? The coaching, the cool equipment?
Snacks.
Nah, here for the community snack jar, man. They don't offer that down the road. I'm here for the community snacks. It's like, yeah, that's right. Top tier. Put that one right at the top of the ads. Cool. All right, so do we want to head into the main question problem for the day? This one's quite a big one. Last episode, we broke down how to pick attempts after a bunch of questions from the people that are competing in the Deadlift for Dogs at the gym that very soon. This one is a bit broader, but something gets asked a lot, so I'm glad this question's come up. But it's the question I've got here is main work is really fucking me up, like fatiguing or beating up or whatever, however we want to interpret that. And is making my accessory work difficult to complete. What do I do?
I'm sure a lot of people can sympathise with that. Absolutely blowing your
lot
load
of avenues to go down.
And then just either not doing the accessories or doing a real half job. And that ability to manage whatever you're doing for your main work to still be able to push decent outcomes for the accessories it's difficult. It's a rather hard thing to do depending on the person and depending on, more importantly, the phase of training which they're in. And I think for us, starting there is probably the best route to go down in terms of how do you allocate
Before we even jump into that, I just want to talk about common situations where this problem might come up because as people progress through their career, get bigger, get stronger, their programs are going to differ a little bit. Like how much work you can handle, how much is going to change as you go from novice through intermediate through advanced lifter, as you get more experienced, as your technique gets more consistent, and like I said, as you get stronger and bigger. And novice programs, because you are inconsistent with your technique, there's a lot of variability between reps. You don't really know what a true RP10 like 2 failure rep is. It's very, very hard to achieve when you're new to it. Because of a few of these different factors, you can handle a lot more workload. Like I could say to somebody kind of new to the gym or new to lifting, new to squatting, and go, I want you to do 8 sets of 8 squatting. And of course it will be hard, but they can probably do it.
They don't have the skill to push hard enough to ruin themselves. I think that's...
Yeah, and then after that, they can probably go do some leg press, and they can probably go do some leg extension, and they can probably go do some more stuff, and they will probably be fine with that because they're just not, they can't execute it to the high level of effort and create a high level of fatigue that comes from that. Now, you fast forward to an intermediate stage, or even worse, an advanced stage, and you throw somebody who's quite strong under that same program, they are quickly going to die. They are quickly going to run into this exact problem this person's given us, which is, the main work is screwing them up. Oh, hello. Yep, we're here. More technical difficulties coming to you. The main work is screwing them up and impacting their ability to put a lot of effort into accessory work, making it kind of a subpar approach, right? So I just wanted to bring that up and just say, people... This is going to change. And I often find that people that run into this have gone really well on these novice type programs. They've gotten way stronger, and it's just that they haven't quite worked out how to program for themselves, or a coach hasn't worked out how to program for them now that they're stronger. They haven't adapted the program to their new kind of level or whatever. You know what I mean? So they're still slamming a huge amount of work that they were able to handle and got them great results as a novice. They can't do that anymore. And they need to, adjust for this fatigue and manage the load, manage the fatigue a little bit better.
It usually becomes more is less as someone gets better and better, because each bout of stimulation is a hell of a lot rougher. Like, I could not imagine in any world where you could do like an 8x8 or a 6x8 squats on really any squat variation but a machine, just because you can push so hard and so heavy. By the time you get towards the back end of those sets, you just don't have the ability to do any more work. And then there goes bye-bye to any meaningful accessories you're doing afterwards.
Yeah, it's going to impact them greatly. But let's go back to where you were heading before in terms of phases. So we've kind of covered who and potentially how we fall into this trap, and that's just not kind of adjusting for your own recovery as things go on. Like as a coach, we're always taking into account, this person's going through uni exams. They're having a lot of stress in their life, that they're not eating so well, they're not sleeping as well. We're going to adjust the kind of what we call training dose to reflect that so that they can still get great results, recover well, adapt well, and keep moving forward. But I find that this scenario comes up a lot with intermediate lifters that haven't done that adjustment very well, or their coaches haven't done that adjustment very well. But yeah, you were going to mention before I cut you off there about different phases.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to look at the difference between, say, an off-season, a prep, or a strength-building phase, the main thing that comes into it with this specific problem is how important that accessory work is and the task which you're trying to accomplish with it. In an off-season, it's probably more of a big deal if you blow your load on your main movement, purely because there's a bunch more stimulation to be had, and the saying, stimulate, don't annihilate, is very useful there, or thinking of it in that sort of a way. If you're going into a prep, if you're not ruining yourself on your main work because you're saving yourself for your Bulgarians, you're doing it wrong. Like, there's a decent juxtaposition there with what priority that those accessory movements have to where they're placed in the program, and how hard you push on those main things as well, and how stimulating you make those top sets, I guess.
Yeah, so let's define them a little bit, because like our main work in powerlifting, obviously that's squat, bench, deadlift, and your close variations of squat, bench, deadlift. They're very skill driven, like where there's a high technical aspect to them. At least from a powerlifting sense, when you're talking snatches and clean jerks, like you do, probably a little down that list. But like for a powerlifting, that's skill work.
Squat goes up, squat goes down, and
don't belittle us, Zach. Right? We do good techniques.
We does good.
But yeah, it's skill work, and it is utilized to shift the most amount of weight. Like, we set up on a bench press in the way that we do. We set up really tight in a low bar position in a squat, etc. We optimize these positions so that we can just shift the most amount of weight for one rep. Makes sense, because that's the fucking sport, right?
That's all there is.
This kind of it makes them not so good at other things, like getting bigger, like taking muscles through a full range, so that they grow with the least amount of trade-off, fatigue trade-off and stuff. So other exercises, like you mentioned, that kind of machine work, like a leg extension or something, is going to give you more stimulus for growth in your quads than a squat on a per set average, with causing less fatigue. There's less fatigue that comes off that. You can get more stimulation if that was your particular goal. If your goal was just to grow, I think that's pretty important to differentiate the reason behind them. And obviously there's other reason to use accessory work, but like for the most part, we're just going to define it as like hypertrophy tools here. Now, if you come into a session and you do these kind of big skill demanding high fatigue offset lifts that are quite heavy, aka the low bar squat, that we know that it's not great for hypertrophy, and you slam yourself with, let's keep going with the 8x8 thing. Could be 10x10, could be whatever, could be 20x20, I don't know. That's terrible. But after that, if you're stuffed, and it's obviously going to be slightly different to every person based on those factors that we said before, if you're stuffed after that, and you just and you go to do leg press after, or you go to do hack squat after, you go to do leg extension after, or whatever, and you just literally can't perform nearly as much work to as high of a level and get the stimulus from those sets than if you were to do them fresh, close to that anyway, then it's kind of maybe defeating the purpose if the goal of that phase, if it is an off-season phase, is hypertrophy. So maybe we flip that on its head. Maybe we go you know what, we're in an off-season. The goal during this block is hypertrophy. We're looking to move you up to the next weight class. We're looking to add more variety and enjoyment in training, whatever it is.
Get thick, as they're called.
Thick boys. Yes. Then maybe what we do is, instead of doing 8x8, maybe we do 3x8 or 3x5 or whatever, like a lower amount of sets. So we're not inducing so much fatigue on the main work, before the hypertrophy work, so we can still perform that hypertrophy work in a really effective way. But it's still enough that kind of we tick the box for skill. Like, we're not going backwards on it. Like, I still feel competent in a squat. Because if we just said, you know what, fuck it, we're just going to do full bodybuilding mode for an off-season, then
you get worse at the thing.
Yeah. You're going to come back to squats in 3 months' time and be like, what's a squat again? It's going to take you, maybe not as long as when you first started, but it's going to take you a significant amount of time to get that kind of rhythm back, that momentum back, something that we talk about a lot on the squatting movement. So we like to talk about just keeping a minimum effective dose of the competition movement to keep skill. That minimum effective dose is also going to be a variable that's different. So somebody who's new to the sport is going to need more work on it to keep competent. Somebody who's been doing a squatting pattern and is quite good at squatting for the last decade is probably not going to require that much, that many sets on it, that much work on it to keep that skill kind of, competent. They're like practiced, confident, whatever. And then they can slam a lot more of the other work, of the hack squats, of the leg press, of the pendulum squats, of the knee extensions, of the whatever, like of the hypertrophy work. So you can get a much larger hypertrophy stimulus, which is the goal of the block, and makes a lot of sense in my eyes.
Yeah, and I guess if you go down the route of how is this applicable, it's looking and prioritizing what you're trying to achieve. That's like the simplest thing we're trying to get down here.
Yeah,
if your primary goal is to build muscle, then go down the route of that minimum effective dose. And it doesn't still necessarily mean that you have to low bar squat. You can add other constraints to those exercises to make sure that you're decreasing the stimulus it's providing and then prioritizing however hard you want to push your accessories. Because it's important to mention as well, those heavily externally stabilized accessories, say like a leg extension, they don't really work if you do an RPE 6. Like you're doing a lot of these exercises to
not at all. You may as well skip it.
You may as well not do it, and that's a big thing as well. Like, if you're in a strength phase and you get into your leg extensions and you say you squat 300 kilos and you're doing 3 pins down a leg extension, just go home. Like, don't bother. There's a certain point.
It would be classified junk volume at that point.
Yeah, because it'll still do something, but not enough to actually provide a stimulus to get better.
No, I don't think it'll do anything. I think you could definitely make the argument it won't stimulate anything, and it's just literally just adding more fatigue.
Does the literature say much? I know there's like the proximity to failure and all that shit, but in terms of the amount of workload for some of those accessory exercises, let's say if we go for a leg extension for the sake of ease, what would you say would be that limit of, okay, this is no longer junk volume? I know it would depend heavily on the person, but I know that you have thoughts on this.
As in, like, if I was able to perform 100 kilos on it normally fresh, then I should be able to. Then I should be able to do this work.
At what point would you say, okay, let's not bother?
I think if it's significantly below your normal output that you would be able to do on it, right? It's just like, and this would change over time again as well. Like, if we go back to the really strong person argument as well, like if I've got them doing 5x5 squats and then leg presses and then hack squats and then leg extensions, then that's a lot of weight, that's a lot of force through those joints, and they're going to have potential problems with that. So it's a load management thing as well. It's like, it's why maybe we're going to pick different exercises and for different rates for that person. But like, you can always lay things out in a different way for a person to get a result. But yeah, I would say, to go back to your question, it's more based on your typical performance on it. You don't want to be dropping off too much from it, and if you are, just put it aside and take the recovery, because that's probably your better tool to keep you moving forward.
Yeah. And on that as well, it's rather easy to draw those distinctions when you're looking at straight hypertrophy, but you also have the added thing of, okay, cool, are we doing this exercise to drive variation in a given range, or is it just straight for hypertrophy? Because there's certain exercises where the constraint of the exercise means that you don't have to use a lot of weight to drive that stimulus. And I think that the topic of variability or valuing how well that you can move it's a dirty topic now, because there's so many people who are going to equate variability to just, I'm going to go do something fucking random. And about drawing that line of, cool, variability and moving well isn't about just like throwing 6 or 7 random movements. It's about finding those constraints to limit the load and all that good stuff.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, in powerlifting, we're always thinking, how does this thing make me better at the lift? Like you said, that can come in directly from, my quad size is the limiting factor in my squat, which, for a lot of people, if you have small legs, then maybe that's something to work on.
So if you don't look like Will, get on the fucking leg extension. That's the main takeaway.
No, don't take it. But then there's other things, like if somebody is already a gigantic person and there is a lot less room to make them bigger within their weight class, or they're, just overall development on their frame, then maybe we use, and they're already quite strong, then maybe we use things like a split squat or something that's a lot more load limiting, that's going to challenge them in a different way, that it's going to carry over to the main lifts in different ways. So it's a load management thing from that point of view, but it's also, like you said, if somebody walks in and they're going to they go, okay, do a squat for me, and it's a typical person that goes like, oh, my squats suck because I have long legs, and they just face plant on the floor. Whenever you put a bar on their back, it's like, okay, maybe we can use some different exercises to drive your skill to get better at kind of staying in a better position throughout the lift, to be able to managing your center of mass, to be able to just move better throughout the lift. So there is that rabbit hole of exercise selection as well. It's like there isn't just hypertrophy and SBD. There's kind of this middle ground of like things that will make me do squats better, Yeah. So like if you would regress the movement back. If a low bar squat is causing you to face plant the floor, at some point in a comp prep, you're just going to have to get that face plant strong.
That is
what I mean? You're just going to have to.
That is my entire pattern for everything.
You're just going to have to get that pattern strong, and it might be a subpar pattern, but this is powerlifting, and you can't rock up to comp and then be like, oh, can you just let me front squat? Like, you have to do the thing. So you're gonna have to practice that at some point. But if you have more time, if you have identified these things early, then we can use anterior loaded squats. Then we can use heel wedges. We can use potentially like some little different cues, whatever it is. But we can use tools to drive you in the direction to improving your technique as well.
Yeah. And I guess there's limits.
So the skill work doesn't have to be super specific.
Yeah, and there's also limits to how much you can do of that. Like, as you said, if you're like 8 weeks out, then you're not changing much. You're just doubling down and getting strong. And on the flip side, if you're in those more off-season phases and you're trying to drive some better movement outcomes, as powerlifters, we really only need what we need. If you can perform the skills with a limited amount of pain, I'm not going to say be pain-free, because the majority of people are kind of hurt in some way, but you don't necessarily need to use more and more of your volume driving range of motion differences that you might not need to perform a task. Like, if someone can't get their arm overhead very well, but their shoulder doesn't hurt, you're probably not going to fight to steal that range if it's not really applicable to the task. So would you prefer do some kind of wanky drill to get them overhead, or do a couple of extra sets of bench? You're probably going to bias one or two of those options depending on, as we said, where you are.
Yeah, where you are, what you need at this time. And that kind of brings us to like potential arguments against this whole clause of like, I said before, I outlined our model of kind of in and off season, doing minimum effective dose for a person to get them moving in a positive direction, and leaving enough kind of gas in the tank after, not fatiguing them so much with that work that it allows for more hypertrophy work after, more work that's going to better exercises for hypertrophy, putting muscles through long ranges and etc. through machines. Now, like I said, I did have a caveat there of that minimum effective dose is going to change person to person. So if somebody's quite new to the gym, it's probably going to take a lot more work to keep them moving forward and be confident and improve that skill, even if it is minimally in an off season. Whereas somebody who's really good is going to have to put that aside and then do more split squatting or more hack squatting or more of this other stuff to keep moving forward in different ways, to keep having an indirect carryover to their main lifts and keep moving forward long term. And some people would say like, well, why don't, like, is it that big a deal that we can't push that stuff after? Like, if I just do my 8 sets of 8 squats and then my couple of sets of leg curls after, and that's my session, why won't the 8 sets of 8 squats kind of do enough that's fine? Like, is that not just good enough for powerlifting? Because it's so specific. Like, it's a game of specificity, yeah?
I mean, depends. As you said, depends on the person. For some people, and there's lots of, no, I wouldn't say lots. There's a few people in America who I know that every male under 26 years of age just wants to either be in their pants or be. Like, you got Remy now wearing the same shorts as whatever Russ Swoley, whatever his name is, and these people who have been lifting for a very long period of time, who are able to deal with that specificity because their movement patterns are immaculate. And in some cases, yeah, they can, but for the most part, you're not Russie Swoley poos. Like, no one is. I don't know his name. That's his Instagram name.
Yeah, Russ. Just Russ. Like, I think everybody just says Russ. You know who Russ is.
Russell.
But yeah, but is specificity our enemy here? I would say, like, if you're at that point where you're close to comp, like the reason we do this this variation, and we do other exercises to drive hypertrophy on a set per set basis a little bit better, or we do things like a front foot elevated split squat to help somebody manage their center of mass a little bit better and make their pattern of their main squat a little bit better over indirectly. The reason we do that stuff is so that down the road they can come into a comp prep and handle more work through the squat. So it's not so much, hey, no, we just don't want you to go like, and just spend all your energy, smash all your fatigue, and not do any accessories, and just like, it's not that won't work. It's just that it will leave you with a limited ceiling in the long term.
Yeah, most likely.
So we're using
frame. Like, you can only do that.
Yeah, it'll definitely have a time frame.
But you might get really fucking strong in the meantime. But eventually you'll trip over a hurdle.
Short term, absolutely. Yeah, short term, absolutely. If you just want to get as strong as an SBD in the near future, over the next few months, and then you go, okay, that's me, done, fuck SBD after that, then by all means, pull up your Russian program and just absolutely just do only squat, bench, and deadlift, and you will get quite good at them pretty quick. However, like I said, you won't get the big hypertrophy kind of outcomes that are going to keep you driving forward through over your 10-year, 20-year career, if that's how long you want to be at it, if you want to be the best in the world. You might run into issues with that as well, because like I said, right now that high level of specificity, it's not that hard on your body. You're not lifting that bigger loads. Your movement patterns aren't super crazy efficient. You're not very repeatable as well. Your reps are a little bit different, rep to rep, all that stuff. So but there's going to be a point where all of them get better. You get stronger. And then all of a sudden, if you do 8 sets of 8 every week, all of a sudden your knees are absolutely fucked, and your back's playing up, and all this different stuff. And a lot of powerlifters will just kind of grit their teeth and be like, oh, well, that's just part of the sport. I'll keep moving through it. But at that point, it might maybe listen to this stuff that we're talking about. Listen to this, kind of less specific off seasons. These are indirect ways of getting your SBDs stronger through, whether it be just getting the tissue bigger, or whether it's driving different movement through the system, like I said, with split squats and stuff. Like, what's your max front-loaded Bulgarian split squat? Probably not 300 kilos. You know what I mean? Like, so you can still get a lot of benefit out of doing something like that, but you're not going to be able to load it near as much, which is going to lead to maybe your joints feeling a little bit better, especially when you look at it over a long time frame.
There's lots of ways to skin a cat. Like, there's lots of ways to achieve the goal, and sure, you can go in there and just absolutely hammer it, like you said, or you can, take a slightly, it would be a little bit slower, but you probably get further in the end. Like, it might pull your total PR out another 2 or 3 months if you don't just absolutely slaughter that. But then that's saying, cool, it takes a little bit longer, but you probably won't feel as bad. You'll probably move a bit better. You'll have more longevity in the sport. And all the top people in the sport have been doing it for quite a while. It's a war of attrition.
Every single one.
Else.
I've never met somebody who goes like, oh, yeah, it's my first year of powerlifting. I just broke every world record. Yeah. Like, the veterans are the ones still there. Of course, there are a couple of... Don't fucking email us and be like, oh, what about... No, fuck that guy. Like, we're talking about...
Fuck that guy and his baggy
we're talking shorts. Talking about in general, like, most people have been at this for a while, and if they haven't, they've been doing a different strength sport before it, or they have some sort of background that has led them to this point. They haven't just like not done anything, picked up a bar, and then in a year broke the world record. Do we have any more roads to go down with this? Are we pretty happy with that? Have we covered this enough that I think done it justice?
I think so. I mean, there's always next week.
Yeah. I think that's the takeaways from this are, you don't have to just do more SBD to get better SBD. Like, you do need to do more over time, but like you can you do phases where it's a little bit of less focus on that and more of a focus on this thing that's going to indirectly benefit that long term. And then during this phase, then we're going to focus on, pushing your workload through those lifts to higher levels and stuff like that. Like if it was just linear and our only approach to getting stronger was just to do more, whether it be more weight, more reps, more sets, then you'd have Yuri Belkin posting up his 50 set of squat workouts or something. Like it's not going to
accumulate more. I guess as long as you know the outcome that you want. The goals that take precedence at that point in time, the plan revolves around that. It really always comes back to that. Prioritize the goal, know what road is going to lead you to that goal in the most efficient and least painful way, and then follow that. Because that'll help guide quite a lot of your decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. So talking about, on the back of that, like a little bit of kind of fatigue management strategies as well. Like people like to frame this as in like it's just a like the most optimal strategy if I dedicated my life and I lived in a vacuum type thing like this. Whereas like if we talk about this, because we've talked about off season versus kind of prep and the difference in the strategies in specificity and indirect versus direct carryover and that sort of thing for all this podcast, but we haven't really talked about the mental aspect of it either. Like I have a bunch of really, really high level athletes, powerlifters on my roster at the moment that have come to me and I'm like, what's wrong? Like, what is up? What is why are you coming to me? You're clearly like really good. You're getting great results, whatever. And like one of the things that comes up a lot, surprisingly, is like I just fucking hate training right now. Like I've been doing this crazy, SBD every day for 5 days a week type program, and it's got me a long way. I've gotten quite strong about it, but either my body doesn't agree with it now, or I just fucking find it, just draining mentally to get to the gym to do this stuff, just do this same shit over and over and over. So there is this mental aspect of it as well that, we're not getting paid millions to do this, so you need to enjoy it if it's going to be something that you're going to be able to stick to long term. So as well as the physical kind of benefits that we've talked about in mixing it up a little bit and having different strategies to get to your best lifts on the day, there's a mental side of it as well. So you need to periodize that. So if you're going through your off season and your coach is just handing you, here's your 8x8 fucking squats, and you're just like, fuck, like I just came out of a comp rep where like all we did was SBD, and now oh yeah, what do I get? Squats with more reps. Sick.
It's a different exercise.
It can be draining, right? So like knowing the different strategies, that might be the best strategy for somebody. I'm not saying that is 100% incorrect, and if you're doing that, your coach is an idiot. No, I'm definitely not saying that. I'm saying that there are different ways to get there, and if you've just come out of a prep and the last thing that you want to do on this planet is do more squats, bench, and deadlifts, there are other ways. You can get around it.
Plenty of other ways, instead of just sitting there and continuously chewing the same drywall. Because no matter how much somebody really likes SPD, you're going to get sick of it eventually. You have to.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm not saying that you just go away from them completely and do a different sport, although some people do.
I feel like that's a shot at me right there.
It's just, it gets hard and then you kind of like fade off. But yeah, your squats could become front squats, your bench could become dumbbell pressing, snatch. It could become whatever. Your deadlifts could become different variations of that. Anything to drive just enough variation that it keeps it mentally exciting. The last kind of thing that kind of fits in here that I wanted to bring up is something that we call like psychological periodization as well, and it's how you approach your sets. So if I have given you, let's go to the one that we kind of gave as like a good example, like for somebody who is in this situation of the main work screwing up a bit and their accessory work's really difficult to get any results from, put any effort into. And we just say like their program is like 3x5 squats, so nothing too fatiguing, nothing too rough. And then after it, they're going to go hit like leg presses and leg extensions, leg curls, whatever, after like general hypertrophy work, maybe some split squats and stuff. In this situation, if you are rocking up at the gym and you've got that program, but then you approach those 3 sets of 5 like you're going to war. Like, you've got the face paint on, you're sniffing a whole box of sniffing salts, you're yelling at the wall, yelling at everybody, getting slaps across the face to get under the bar for those 3 sets of 5. Guess what? That's also going to impact how much fatigue you accumulate for each of those sets. So you might still just finish those 3 sets of 5 and then and still you're like, fuck, I've run into the same problem even though I've reduced my sets by half.
But you're still carrying on like a goose.
Yeah, so like in an off season when you're doing higher reps and the absolute loads aren't as high, like maybe consider just having a calmer approach to it, just having a bit more chill approach to the bar, a little bit, think about the method a little bit more, think about your cues, make it very repeatable and exactly the same reps and all that business. Save the big hype ups, save the getting fucking wild for your preps when you've got the big top triples, the big top doubles, singles, whatever it is. And you'll find that the fatigue from those 3 sets will be much lower. And then, but this is the key, right? Then, after you've done your 3 5s on the squats and you've approached them calmly and you've done them very well, the leg press comes up next. Guess what? I want you like fucking yelling and screaming and treating that like that's the main shit right there. Like, I want you going hard on that. Like, I want you, if it's 3 sets of 10, I want those 3 sets of 10 to be like, RPE 11. Like, I want you to go absolutely balls to the wall on them and get through and put max effort into them to drive hypertrophy in the best way. So it's not that I don't want you to get hyped and I just want you to be a chill guy in the gym and just change yourself completely or whatever, but just change what you get hyped for, what you get, where you put the most amount of, like, not only physical effort but mental effort. Complement your training goals, what you're trying to achieve with each set, with also how you approach the bar for each set.
Budget your arousal. Say, for example, you have 6 arousals. You have to spend those 6 arousals throughout the session. If you're going to bust 5 of your arousals on squats, you're not going to be aroused at all for your leg press. So you need to make sure those arousals are distributed equally based off the need and based off the priority of the exercise.
Yeah. Really good viewing.
I reckon that's actually to wrap it up. I think hour in. Yeah.
I think just to give a quick wrap up of that last part there before we wrap up the whole episode. So during an off season, maybe save your arousal on your SBD work and really focus on having a calm, methodical approach. Build some really good habits because when you get under a bar at a comp, you're not going to be able to think, and you want those habits to come through. And then really like get amped, go hype, really like fucking go killer mode on like the leg press, the leg extensions, the stuff that you've got after. And then during a prep, feel free to use all of your energy on your 5-5s or whatever you're doing on your squats, because the stuff after is less important during that phase. And that stuff is kind of on the back burner a little bit. We're not trying to drive big hypertrophy anymore. If your coach is doing their job right, they've kind of picked exercises that constrain the amount of load you can use, so that that's not an issue anyway. It's just picking the right thing at the right time, which is kind of the general theme of this whole episode. So I hope we did a good job of answering that question. Main work is fucking me up and making my accessory work hard or difficult to complete, I should say. If anybody has any further questions to that we didn't dive into, then feel free to jump up on the website, www.nexusperformance.com.au, and hit the podcast link at the top and submit your question through there. Alternatively, you can go to Instagram and go to nexusperformance.aus on that page and message it through to us on there.
Thank you for listening to Nexus Unloaded. Be sure to jump on our website to find details on everything mentioned on today's podcast, plus information on our coaching, mentoring, and gym services. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at nexusperformance.aus for any updates on what we are currently doing. See you all in the next episode.